Welcome to Resource Sessions. I'm Gwendolyn Sterk of Sterk Family Law, and I'm privileged today to have with us Kris Anderson. Welcome, Kris. How are you today?
Hi, good, good. How are you? It's getting warmer, so
Yes,
wonderful.
very good.
Finally.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do in your work.
Okay. Again, my name is Kris Anderson. I'm a life coach with a focus on personal and professional development. I help people with career transitions, life purpose, um, uh, work challenges, people who are wanting to uh, move beyond where they are today and experience more fulfillment in their life. I'm also a motivational transformational speaker and a licensed clinical social worker.
Excellent. So today we want to concentrate your efforts with regard to divorced individuals, obviously, given that we do family law. And I know that one of your roles in your coaching is that you help people redefine themselves after divorce. So, if I was to ask that question, it would be that many people feel like divorce really is the end of their story. And that happens a lot. And I'm sure you see it as a beginning rather than the end. So, how do you help clients move from that sense of loss to a sense of possibility?
Okay, so let me back up for just a moment. I think it will be important to share also that I have a very diverse background, and I always tell people that I've worked with the worried well to the chronically mentally ill from all walks of life, children through seniors. And in my work, I have seen people at their absolute worst and supported them to becoming their personal best. What got me interested in family matters is that when I worked in the public school system as a school social worker, I saw a lot of families in turmoil, couples going through divorce, who had already divorced or who were moving through the process of separation. And the conflicts that they were having in their homes affected the kids. So when the kids came to school, it was very hard for them to focus on education, which is why they were there. So they would lose focus. I noticed that they had a tendency to isolate from other kids, seeing themselves as very different. They had a tendency to deal with anxiety and depression and stressors that a typical kid would not. So I took interest in that. And at another point in my life, I took a course on divorce mediation. My professor was a divorce mediator, very, very well known, and she pointed out that when couples would meet with her, and the idea was to work towards resolution, they would be fighting and arguing over finances and material items and who was going to get the kids. The issue with that is that they had lost sight of what was important, and that was the kids. And they were fighting to have what they thought they really wanted. And the divorce mediator said she would stop them and say, "What is it that you want your kids to say about you when they turn 18?" And they will talk. How do you want them to view you? And what kind of relationship do you want to have with them? And that really made a difference in how they worked towards resolution. They had a bigger focus in mind, and that was having some peace and contentment in relationship because of the needs of the kids. So they weren't just fighting for things, they were fighting for a cause, something bigger than themselves.
Got it. So it's the cause that becomes the focal point. So, you talk about an emotional fork in a road sometimes, and it really can become choosing bitterness or choosing growth. How can someone begin to choose growth, in your opinion?
Well, healing is a choice. And if a person stays stuck, meaning that they don't see possibilities for better outcomes in the future. There's a tendency to look back at what went wrong, to blame the other person and not take accountability for maybe things that they had done to contribute to the decline of the relationship. And redefining yourself means that you have a choice if you want to move forward and have options, possibilities for a better future, or you want to stay stuck and live versus exist.
Right. Yeah, and I think that we forget that and we don't look at the finish line, so to speak, or what that view is going to be down the road. And that can sometimes be a paralysis for people really going through the process. So that's some good advice. Now, you also want to challenge people to ask themselves, are you a victim or are you the author of your next chapter? How would you distinguish those two items?
So being a victim is um, looking at losses, having regrets, um, being caught up in your emotions, and feeling a sense of hopelessness, despair, and overwhelm. And seeing hope for the future means that you get to write your story where you may have an attachment to the person that you are leaving. They're a part of your life, and there's so much more to you that maybe hasn't been discovered because you were with this person and the two of you define the relationship. And this is an opportunity for you to decide where you want to go from here. What are your values? What are your goals? Long term, where do you see yourself? How do you want to show up in the world? Show up in your relationship with your kids, show up in the workplace.
Right. And I think that you said an important thing of where you're not going to get rid of this person. They're going to be part of your life. But if you view your life as a circle, you can then put the boundaries around where that person is involved in your life. And it doesn't have to be all consuming or hovering over the entire life. It can be a separate portion of your life, so to speak.
Exactly.
And I think that's important to do. So, you really talking about how do you then help a client shift from that blame to reclaiming their energy or choosing to focus on the future? I mean, really, what is the pivotal point? I know that it's a choice that somebody makes, but what's the impetus a lot of times for people?
Well, I think it's important for a person to be insightful and take a look at themselves, what role they played in the decline of the relationship, where they may have made mistakes, where they have an opportunity to do better. So being more insightful and recognizing that perhaps your past, your upbringing, your own models defined who you were and aren't aren't necessarily the best. The best choices or modeling for your children.
And then really making that change. So I guess then the issue becomes, you see a lot of people and they're the victims, and I take domestic violence very seriously, but there comes a point in time when you have to move past that, right? Or it's going to take over your life.
Yes, with divorce, there's a sense of loss, a sense of identity confusion, a sense of isolation, fear of failure
Sure.
as you move forward, fear of the future. And it's necessary for some people to heal from the hurts and the heartache from the past before they can feel like they're able to move forward. So there's definitely room for supportive services.
100%. And that goes forward. But then there is that point when you have to impose your own self care. And I know that's a word that gets thrown out a lot, but what would you urge somebody to do to say, okay, how do I set up boundaries? What do I do with therapy? What plays a role in me moving forward? What would you say to them listening today?
Um, Healthy boundaries are essential. When we're caught up in dysfunctional relationships, sometimes we don't recognize how much um, uh, another person can influence us. And when you have a chance to breathe and step back and take a look at the situation that you were in, you might find that you were contributing to the problem. And healthy boundaries can mean effective relationships, asking for what you want and need from other people in your circle of influence, your support system.
Right.
It means saying no when what you're being asked to do or the expectations that are being put upon you are not reasonable.
Sure. So, we're talking about putting up boundaries, saying no, and having other people that might be affiliated with your team. What kind of team do you think people should pull together to help them overcome and go to these next steps?
Well, I think it depends on the situation that you're in. Some people can end a relationship peacefully. Others may need extra support, and that support might include an attorney, of course, um, friends who are unbiased, who are able to be a listening ear but not influence your decisions, as this is between you and your partner, a therapist who can support you with mental health concerns, teach you coping skills and how to deal with anxiety, trauma, stress, um, and anxiety. Yeah, I said anxiety, trauma,
Fear,
depression
really.
that
Yep.
may come
Fear.
along with
Right.
the challenges and the changes that a person is having to deal with. Also, a life coach. If you're ready for coaching, coaching is a choice. And as a coach, I support people in moving forward with goals, aspirations, and I'm there as an accountability person. I hold space for them to answer questions for themselves, answers that they already have within them that often they don't even realize. So, where therapy looks back at the past
Right.
and teaches you how to cope, coaching supports you in moving towards a better existence, more fulfillment, more happiness in your life, and realizing goals
Sure.
that you want to achieve.
And I think that's a really good distinction because there is a difference, and there comes a point in time when you have to shift to the coaching to move forward because you can't dwell in the past forever either. I mean, at some point in time, somebody who's gone through a divorce, somebody who's healed from a divorce, they have to then draw that line and say, now I'm going to work on myself, which I think the coach can help them with the self-care aspect of it, giving them the goals to be able to move forward. So I understand that. Now, you encourage people to explore the passions they may have. You talked about that earlier. And some of these passions during the course of a marriage may have been put on hold. How do you help somebody reconnect with their past passions? And I'll tell you one of mine, and I'd like to get back to it, but I can't work now on it, which is painting. I used to have a passion for it, and I know that I save that for something for the future. When the time is right, that's what I will go to. So I give you an example just for a listener. So how do you then bridge the gap to say, now we're going to work on that?
Okay, so first of all, when you ask people, um, what do they want for themselves? What do they want for their futures? A lot of people don't know
Yeah.
because they've never been asked, and we're so busy checking things off our to-do list that often we don't even stop to think what we really want in life. So I like to encourage people to have something to look forward to, something that maybe they wanted to do. Start getting fit again. Maybe that means you start by walking. Maybe you get a membership at a fitness center. Then maybe you take the next step and you get a new outfit, new shoes. Then you go to the fitness center. You connect with people who are like-minded, who also want to invest in taking care of their bodies, be stronger physically, which could lead to a more confident self. Take care of something. If it's a plant or doing some gardening or a pet, have something that needs your time and attention to keep you looking forward, and give you something to be hopeful for.
Sure. And I always say that, people come back, and I haven't been doing divorce as long as I have. I know sometimes a lot of people take that last vacation before they get a divorce, trying to hope that there's going to be something that's going to change on that vacation, right? So then they come back home and they're back to where they were and nothing really changed from it. And so then they start on that embarkment. But I'm always telling people, when you come back from vacation, it should be a way that you're looking forward to what the next thing is. It doesn't mean it has to be an end, right? You're coming back and maybe the summer's ahead of you, and if you just went on vacation, or there's some event to look forward to. And I think that that's the other element, is really looking forward to new things in your life, right?
I agree. And when people divorce, often there's a loss of friendship relationships
Sure.
that the couple shared, and you may find yourself having to build new friendships. And that can be hard as a single person who may be tied up with family responsibilities. Um, but just having something new in your life can be a source of encouragement for you. People that don't know you, don't or wouldn't judge you based on your past. You get to show up as a new self.
Right. And again, you're embarking on something new. And I always believe that God brings in people in our lives in different stages that are there for a time period. And I think a lot of people that focus on losing friendships from a relationship, as an attorney, and although I'm not a therapist and I'm not a coach, I just have been doing it long enough to say, well, those people were in your life for that period of time, but we all very rarely have more than a handful of friends over the course of our lifetime. But it doesn't mean we don't have a lot of friends at one stage. So just accept the stage that you're in and embark on something new, right?
I'm not so harsh.
I'm a little more harsh, I
Being
guess.
that
I'm a little jaded after doing this
a
for a lot of years.
therapist. I'm a
Yeah.
therapist
Right.
who is very empathetic to people who are going through or who have been through difficult times. And when you develop relationships, often there's this element of trust. And with people being so busy and plugged into social media, it can become more difficult to make friends, make friends and keep friendships going. And so I do see that as a loss for a person. When you confided in that person, when you look to them for support or encouragement, when you wanted to share successes with that person and they're no longer there, that can create a very painful void in your life. And so you can cherish what you had and you can build on that and know that if you had wonderful friends in the past, you can always build more friendships.
Right.
And it's also an opportunity to right the wrong in a sense. If you made mistakes in your past, if your communication wasn't always healthy, when the content of your conversations was often negative, it's a new beginning, and you don't have to move on from the memories of friends of the past.
Sure.
You can cherish those memories and then find other people in your life that you can relate to and
Sure.
who are uh, trustworthy and supportive.
Right. Now, I think that with coming to this new beginning or moving forward is also a level of freedom, right? You for the first time you hear people say, I've never had really this opportunity to do this. Like you said, you've been picking things or checking things off the list and not really taking that time for yourself. How do you define freedom for people and how should they embrace that?
Freedom is having choice. It's having free will. It's being able to decide for yourself what you value, what you view as important in your life, and surrounding yourself with things and people who support the things that you support and value the things that you see as important.
Right. So somebody's listening today and they're saying, okay, I'm there, maybe. That, and I put that maybe on there in real strong words. I want to move forward. I know that it's time. Where do I start? Really, what help me? What do I do?
Um, so again, there is this clear um, clear line between who would be beneficial for therapy and who would be a good coaching client. Someone who is hurting, someone who is still dealing with feelings of anger and bitterness and hatred and remorse and loss and continues to focus on the past needs support from a trained therapist, a trained professional who knows how to help them get through some really tough times in their life, who can be a sounding board for them, who can sit with them and allow them to share their story and figure out what may have gone wrong and how to make better choices, how to deal with the issues or the mistakes of the past. And a coach is someone who is a support person for you, who does not give you answers, who, as I said, holds space for you to ask you tough questions in a respectful way to help you come up with answers that are meaningful for you and that can help you determine next steps in your life, who you want to be going forward. And so I think it's really important that people take an honest look at themselves to figure out where they are. You might not be ready for coaching, but you can do some work on yourself as far as personal development, getting restful, restorative sleep, reevaluating the types of foods, quote unquote, foods you put into your body that are supposed to be nourishing your body and your mind. Um, Geez, lost my train of thought. Um,
You can start
just showing
somewhere,
up in
right?
the world as a better person, because you get to choose whether you live or exist. And I'd like to share this quote that I think is so powerful, so impactful. Your perspective can be your power or your prison. And when I say prison, I mean that you can hold yourself in this space where you don't see hope for the future, where you live with regret, where the modeling that you demonstrate to your kids um, is is such that um, they think that that is love and that is how you're supposed to relate to other people when you could be choosing better for
Right.
yourself. And when you're feeling better about yourself, other people notice that, and you can be a positive example for your kids and show them what healthy looks like, healthy relationships, healthy communication, healthy boundaries, so that as they grow up, they can make better choices for
Right.
themselves.
And really looking, and I think it's important that you talked about that, about the element of choice. You talk about it, and there might be 4 or 5 different ways to approach a situation, but when you have that positive mindset and you're in a new position, you're going to look through it and take what I call the higher road, or you're going to look through that window pane and see it from the impact that it's going to have on other people. So I highly encourage our listeners to really consider this, to consider life coaching, and maybe you can tell us a little bit more about your organization, Come Alive and Thrive.
Okay. You can find me at Come Alive and Thrive with Kris. Kris spelled Kris, Come Alive and Thrive with Kris.com. You can reach out to me, fill out a contact form, and we can talk. And if I'm not the right person for you, if I'm not the right coach, I'll let you know that. If I think that you need therapy, because of my background as a licensed clinical social worker, I will tell you that. I would want you to get the support that you need at this time in your life.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us. I think it's really critical today that people understand the options that are out there, that when you're past therapy, there is the option of coaching to help gear you and to spend some money on yourself and some time and efforts and new beginnings. So we appreciate your efforts, what you do in our community. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Gwen. Thank you.